Hello, everybody. Welcome to Everything in Moderation podcast. Today we are talking about the U.S., Australia, and UK submarine deal. Who'd like to get us started?
I can, if you just want to give a little general introduction to it. So basically, the U.S. has entered a deal with the U.K. and Australia. It's like a new military strategic pact for nuclear submarines that are going to be in Australian waters. So what is it? 12 subs that they're adding. So these are submarines that are capable of launching missiles from them, and basically they are the chess pieces of the global chessboard. And it definitely is an important strategy they are employing, but they're employing it in a weird area that many people might not know why, and that is the South and East China Sea, and then basically all around Taiwan and South Korea and Japan, all around that area is where we're deploying these subs. Now you might ask, why would we do this? Do you guys know of any current events that just happened that might have explained it?
Nothing comes to mind.
No, it's okay. So basically there's this whole tension between Taiwan and China.
Okay, yeah.
Not to mention there has been a lasting tension between North Korea and South Korea. So why am I so concerned about Taiwan and South Korea? I mean, the countries themselves, if you look, they don't make a huge amount of revenue. I mean, they don't really affect America that much when it comes to certain things. However, I'm going to be talking about what I would consider the next Cold War is going to be happening. And guess what? It's going to be over. It's going to be over a resource, semiconductors.
Yeah.
Now, I just want to ask you guys, you have anything in your pocket that it literally has a semiconductor? I mean, I'm just asking. So on my head, I have semiconductors in here. Right here. Yeah, everybody got phone. Does anybody have well actually
I have
my
my earbuds in.
do you have I mean, if they're regular earbuds, just like audio cable, they wouldn't have semiconductors. Well, if there's any kind of logic in it would have a semiconductor. But my point is everything around you is now having semiconductors in it. Why? It's because we like to program logic into our devices, like make smart devices. I mean, we have like phones and everything, but this goes a lot farther than we even think. I mean, it's in our infrastructure. I mean, Wi-Fi, I mean, we use semiconductors all the time, and it's only increasing. So I just want to give a little metric here to just give you a little understanding of where this kind of lies, right? So let's go look at the market share for semiconductors real quick. So we see Intel is a big player. Now this is purely market share being their like stock, okay? Mm-hmm. So Intel's a big player in the industry, but then you see this big thing that says others. What that is? So I'll show you what that is. If you see here on the end part here, this is the value chain of the semiconductor industry. Okay, look at Taiwan. They're green. Yeah. They are a huge section of the value chain, at least the bottom two parts of the value chain of the semiconductor industry. Okay, and so is Korea within design. I think I have another graphic that shows you how these activities work. Now, here's an important part, and this is why, there's a big competition between China and America. So look here. Who has basically the best piece of pie of this value chain? Can you guess? If you were to look at from I know it's very hard to understand the semiconductor value chain, but what part of this value chain, if we don't have, there is no chips?
Probably the people in the back end.
So no.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but it's actually design. So why do I say that? So chips have to be continually designed to get better and better and better. It's called generational technology. And this is why the United States is so rich. Okay. It's because we're so super good at creating awesome things and inventions. So we are basically major designers of chips. Intel is specifically as well. AMD, everybody knows all the big players, right? And South Korea is also a part of that value chain. And I love how they put UK in here. So IP is literally just like the imagine like processes your brain. It's the cortex of the processors, like the main core. But it really isn't like cool technology. It's just like somehow UK's in this value chain. But besides that, we also see that Japan's also in there, Australia. That's for equipment. I mean, we also produce equipment as well. So we basically, America is a huge pin in the space. Okay. And another thing is I want to show you is look at Taiwan. Look how many parts of the pie that they're in.
Yeah.
Like they're in at least 3, like mostly manufacturing, where the whole thing is really in manufacturing. But it's South Korea, Japan, China, and all this. But you see China, they only got 2 parts of it, right? They don't have a lot. Now, you're not going to believe me. China makes from the revenue 30% from these Intel chips. So why am I focusing on that number? Let me move this. What I'm saying is, if they strategically say if China goes invades Taiwan tomorrow, China owns,
which they won't.
5%. Well, I mean, we don't know, but this pact definitely prevents it. Okay, but say if they did do that, they would go from 5% of the the total market to 11%. Now I know that doesn't seem like a big jump if they were to capture Taiwan, but look how valuable here they are in this value chain. So China is trying to go and they have to do this quickly, and I'll explain this because what Trump did. They have to go and make an effort to do something with Taiwan. That is the next big chess play that China has on the board. That is the international scale, and we're trying to prevent it. To the degree that we can prevent it, I don't know. We can always threaten nuclear war, but I mean, ultimately, what the hell did we do with part of Ukraine and Crimea when that shit happened? We kind of caved.
Yeah.
It wasn't a big deal for us, but that is Ukraine. This is another story, but this is definitely a huge point of contention. Now, Trump put us on a amazing road. I know it's weird coming from me, right? But he made a deal with TSMC, which is Taiwan's major chip producer, and they own a huge market share, to start building their chips in Arizona. Why is this important? So say if 10, 20 years from now, China does take over Taiwan, if TSMC has all their factories in Arizona, okay, whatever. Guess what?
That's a good play.
Absorbed. And this is why China is now put on a clock. And thank God Joe Biden still realizes this and is continuing his policy. If he repealed it, I would have called him like the most idiotic person ever, right? But this is where we're at in the global scale, where we're sitting with these the chips. And I just really want to know the kind of emphasis that is definitely the main point. There's a lot of other stuff that goes into it, but what do you guys think?
I think that this definitely changes what I was coming in with, because I wasn't aware of the moving the operations of the Taiwanese semiconductor company to the US, but that's actually, I mean, that is, you said 4D level chess, so I was like,
it is. That's what I said in chat. It's a super intelligent play from the Trump administration, so I definitely got to give him props.
And this is, I was coming into this and I was going to be like, well, the U.S. is sort of flexing military power to make China kind of dissuade China from doing what they're doing. But then I was looking at it and I'm like, well, China doesn't necessarily want to take military action anyway. Like they kind of just go into countries, they start building themselves up in that country, and they also, I mean, we all know how much of a asset they are to the global supply chain when they have things going wrong, and the whole world has things going wrong in terms of that. But it's interesting to see how that bringing the Taiwanese semiconductor company to America, or just at least setting that in place so that it will happen eventually. It's sort of like what something China would do a little bit in terms of, probing and doing that. So I think that this definitely changed my attitude, right before I even had a chance to even state anything. So yeah, I mean, that's why, like, I was worried that we were falling into the same trap of just flexing military power when China really doesn't have any interest in that portion of it. It was a little different. Like, this is a sort of a different Cold War, if it comes to that, because Russia was a looming military threat at the time, whereas China's more of an economic threat. Obviously, they present some sort of military threat as well, just because of the sheer numbers that they could put up in their army. But we also have to remember that the Chinese military hasn't seen conflict since like the 80s, I think, or the 90s, when they invaded Vietnam. And they left just as good as we did after Vietnam. So it's it's pretty crazy.
Well, first off, I just want to say, for those who saw me eating, which probably was everybody, I was eating buffalo chicken. It's all gone, so that way it's in my stomach digested. So won't be able to see me eat anymore. So that's unfortunate. But anyway, I definitely, I was thinking about what Christian was saying, because usually they do have a lot of stuff going on with Taiwan moving into the U.S. And I know Christian's more of a China expert, more of a better China expert than I am. But I would say, like if China wanted to take over Taiwan, China can do it anytime they want. They are no country is afraid of Joe Biden, and they don't really see him as like an effective leader right now. So I think moving to the U.S. to production I would say it's a good move in a way. I mean, we'll see how the Biden administration takes care of this and looks at it moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think that just China's main interest in Taiwan is, I mean, maybe we're totally wrong, but I think Danny brings up a good point in their quest for the total market share of semiconductors. Taking a page out of our book, geez. So it's interesting that if you take that away from them, then what do they have to do? It's mostly just a pride thing. It's a national pride thing, because this is technically the old Chinese government from 100 years ago, and they're independent. They speak a different sort of language, and it threatens the CCP's legitimacy, because, and I mean, listen, like, there's not a lot of people that actually recognize Taiwan. There's very few countries, because I mean, we could see, I had a graphic. I don't
There's
have
very few
it.
companies in the United States that recognize Taiwan as
Yeah.
a country.
It's like one of those things, like, where when Crimea was annexed from Russia, like all news media reports, Crimea was annexed from Ukraine, sorry. All the news media reports showed Ukraine without Crimea, and like people were getting pressed about it. But then,
Yeah.
and then like you look at some other media or whatever, and they show China, and then you see like Taiwan in the distance, but they count it as China, which is pretty entertaining.
So one thing I want to bring up, specifically about the Chinese military, is that they have ramped up their spending on both their Navy and their Air Force. So, I don't know what to call it, but I definitely think the tension is going to be in Taiwan. And I definitely think it's going to be an issue. And, primarily why I think this is going to be an issue is because China is currently going through a weird kind of labor revolution. So, as my favorite investor, Charlie Munger, has said multiple times when he has analyzed Chinese companies from 2015 onward, is that they have moved on from getting little Chinese girls to manufacture shoes to now having robots do it. So, what does that mean for China within their labor market? They now have, how we talked about last week, is that, we'll have VI technology replacing labor sections. Well, China is now going through that revolution, like for real, within a lot of the market. And why that is because specifically they have a lot of manufacturing sections in China. So it serves them to have free labor in this way, right? So they need these chips. And there's going to be a continued shortage because we need to continually mine a lot of materials to get and produce these chips. And we've seen that the supply chain, the value chain, is also and can be very disrupted. Now imagine if China takes Taiwan, how much we're going to have to pay as a country to even build chips. Okay. And then this is specifically why, at least in my portfolio, as I have a hedge against this even happening. I own both Intel, which is an American producer of chips. I also own the just standard information technology ETF that holds the Taiwan chip company, because I recognize that anything can happen in these next coming years between that area, and I want to be as prepared as possible within that industry. And it's definitely very scary for the future, because whoever wins this battle will be better positioned in the coming technological advancement. Okay, so what do I mean by that? If you have more supply of chips, you have more of the ability to make things that have chips in them. Now, go look at the car industry right now, and they are hemorrhaging. They're just hemorrhaging. It's blowing up right now because they can't manufacture cars because they have a lack of chips. Okay, and this is only going to grow as we continue this trend towards a more automated world. So
Yeah, well, so I like that you brought up the ATF. As most of you guys know, so Biden nominated this man named David Chipman to lead the ATF. And fun fact, he actually spoke to my class when I was in DC, and I thought he would, but he ended up being like a total whack job, as people, as people in the media saw it. And he never should have been nominated for the ATF. And they're probably going to nominate someone else now. So just wanted to throw it out there. But I think just looking at how there's a high demand for chips and technology. Obviously, many countries need it, since we live in a society where we rely on our phones, we rely on the internet for everything. So whoever ends up making this is going to get a lot of revenue pouring into their country. I mean, obviously, I'm rooting for the United States. Obviously, I mean, they definitely should be far ahead than everyone. But of course, I always hate to see when the U.S. is behind. And obviously, we have the technology to do it. So, why not do it now?
U.S. is very well positioned in this race already. We have 40% of the entire world's market share through various industries like AMD and Intel. And not only that, we are now trying to take over the industry in Taiwan, at least get more of that value chain here. Because one thing that, especially when I was looking at Deloitte's analysis of the entire sector, was that in order to prevent disruptions like what happened in the coronavirus within the supply chain, we need to be more self-sufficient as a nation. So we need to be able to have more parts of that value chain happening here in the United States. So that's what the United States has realized, and that's why we have invested and put a contract together with Intel to build a facility also in Arizona, just so we can have all that capability here. Because, let's say 1 year, 2 years from now, China invades Taiwan, we'll have some stuff ready in the at that company factory, but most likely thing that will happen is that whole company will just get ripped off and right back to China.
Look,
Unless they're there for a long time.
I have no faith in this administration right now. I mean, if China can take over Taiwan today, and Biden would be like, okay, you can take Taiwan. I mean, if Trump were still president right now, China would not be going after Taiwan.
So this is like one of those things, right? International politics, where it's even happening within our politics, but I'm not going to touch upon that. Is that where you come to the game of chicken, and someone's going to have to give. And when it comes to situations where it is a state that doesn't pose an immediate threat to the, I don't even know how to put it, like the livelihood of the entire country. Like the United States is not going to go put all its cards on the table, right? And say, guess what? If you take Taiwan, and this is any situation, and if any president actually were to go and put all the cards on the table, I'd be extremely concerned, because fuck Taiwan, they can go get ripped off the planet. I'm just not trying to die. We have to avoid nuclear war at all costs. And when it comes to Taiwan, especially, China is very passionate about getting that shit right back into China. Okay. And, I don't think that that's going to stop anytime soon. And they have a lot of strategic advantages of taking that area, because not only do they get that kind of the industry, right, but they get a huge strategic advantage along that sea. And not only that, they also have a gateway into South Korea, which is the huge concern, because then that creates a global tension that could actually froth up into war, because then Japan would get involved if that happened in South Korea. Now, Japan keeps on talking about getting involved in Taiwan. We'll see if that happens. I think the United States is probably going to go kind of take the leash and go, don't go out. Nope, this is not happening. Go hold the reins on that one. But, South Korea is probably the end all be all, because that's like the last border between, Japan and China. And I think, we as a nation would fight for Japan. I
swear, if North Korea takes over South Korea, oh God, no, that's won't be a good day.
I also wonder how that will happen, because our military directly operates with South Korean military. So you'll also have people on arms there fighting North Koreans. Like our men will be fighting North Koreans if that happens. I don't know if we're going to send a whole bunch of people. The people currently there, there's people training, there are people in operations there, and that'd be, hopefully that never happens. But China definitely would support North Korea.
Yes,
that endeavor.
That'll be one of their few that they definitely could trust their support, because North Korea will definitely support them. There's always the saying that maybe Russia will support China, but I'm sure they probably don't even want to deal with it at some point. It really depends. But I actually wanted to kind of shift gears and talk about another part of the world where China has a very big influence, and that's Antarctica. That's it's a little known so far. But why are countries in Antarctica? Do any of you guys know?
For resources, for fit.
It's mostly for scientific research benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah. So basically what we do is we send a bunch of scientists down there. We have bases down there too. We send a bunch of scientists down there, they live there, and they conduct a bunch of studies, right? China's there. And part of being in Antarctica is you have to sign a treaty where it's totally demilitarized, right? The only time, so for example, if the United States is going to use a C-130 to transport something, they have to notify every country that's there and be like, hey, this plane is coming at this time, at this direction, whatever, just so everyone's aware and they don't, immediately call aggression, right? So as of right now, China has 5 bases in Antarctica. I'm not really sure how many the US has, to be honest, but
Or what kind of bases?
it's supposed to be for scientific bases, right? It's this
Are they like big facilities, like huge facilities?
Okay, so one of the major issues, the major red flags here is that China made a runway. The US doesn't even have a runway in Antarctica. The thing with
Great.
the runway is that, what does that tell us? It tells us that
We're behind.
they're planning on being there for a long time, right? The way that we land in Antarctica is we literally put skis on like the landing gear and then we land on the ice. It's pretty hysterical now that I like think about it.
It's extremely hard, first off, to even even fly over in that area.
I was listening to somebody speak about it the other day, and he said that there's millions of dollars that goes around to like transporting stuff over Antarctica. And so going back to the treaty, part of the treaty states that inspections should be routinely conducted so that everyone can ensure that all the countries that are there are doing what they're supposed to. And that's just scientific work, right? But the problem is that is a that's a part of the treaty that is not upheld whatsoever. I think the last time the US did an inspection was in 2014. And I think New Zealand is one of the main countries that have a really big presence there. I think the last time they did their inspection was like 2018. So they're a little more up to date. But the thing is apparently there's some data that states that there was PLA forces in Antarctica for whatever reason.
PLO being
the People's Liberation Army, so it's the Chinese army. Yeah. So no one really knows what they got going on over there, but one can only assume. And one of the big things is, at least this American that I was listening to speak was advocating for more inspections, but not in the way that like it victimizes China, because that if we try to inspect them, they're going to call like aggression or something. So you have to go with other countries to like inspect every facility. And one of the main things that kind of gives away China's activities there, maybe this is way off the mark too, but the thing is that when you're doing scientific research in Antarctica, right? What are you producing? You're producing research, peer-reviewed research. Of all the countries in Antarctica, China has the least peer-reviewed research coming out of Antarctica.
Why am I not surprised?
So, it kind of brings into question. It's like, are these like extremely peer-reviewed research?
It's hard to peer review when you're afraid of your peers reviewing your material before you get.
Or probably just that they do the research and then they give it to dictator Xi Jinping, and he goes, "Okay, it's all good."
Yeah, like I think that if you want to paint it like that, I think that is if you want to go against the military narrative, I think that's really the only other solution that you could cite, because like if they just keep it in-house and in China, there's a case for that too.
Can I just show you something on the map, just to give you a quick like military perspective on this? So like the reason why they would even have a base in Antarctica to begin with is where I would assume the bases would probably be around either this area, correct, or at least right near Australia to begin with. Like they probably have facilities at least covering this area. So, why would they have that? Well, okay, first off, you have early strike capability of Australia. And then if you go revert back to Antarctica, you have early strike capability on Canada and the United States. So definitely not as, much as we would have now as presidents there, because we control this entire ocean and this ocean as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really, we have a lot of areas separating us from China at least like from a nuclear strike. However, they are close, but Antarctica makes them closer because of right here, they can just launch and go like up from the north. But it's just that they don't really have too much of an strategic advantage. So I'm probably like certain this is more of a play for Australia now than it is for anything. They're probably trying to cover all their bases here and make sure they have capabilities everywhere. Now I don't think
Australia has became a dictatorship too.
Australia
with their COVID restrictions.
I think that might warrant an episode on that, but that's a whole nother topic.
I was just bringing up China and Australia.
Yeah.
And then China and Australia basically right now, they're basically the same government right now. And Australia is supposed to be one of the most freest countries in the world. Not anymore.
Not
as free as the US though. Not as free as the US.
It's like I want to expect the country that was a prison country to or we sent prisoners to become a very free country. I mean, they never even had guns, and then when they did, they lost a war against animals, so it wasn't really like the best thing. But like I definitely agree that they are in a weird situation in Australia. I personally wouldn't live in Australia because of the laws that they have in their state.
I do want to just end the. I know we're running out of time.
Hold on.
Go ahead.
Let me just show you this. This was since Danny was kind of pointing out where the bases might be. Here is where the bases actually are.
Nice.
Yeah. So.
Okay, so you have some by the Great Wall.
Yeah.
Going up nearby China, mostly by China, but it seems like they pretty much have everything except for the Ross Sea.
Yeah.
I wonder what that area is. Probably nothing. Big gaping.
Anthony, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I know we're running out of time. So just to recap, obviously, this is gonna be something to keep touch on. Maybe we can do a future episode on this. And keep an eye on the relationship with China and Australia, since they kind of are the same right now. It's a shame Australia went down that path. But I'm looking forward to next week's episode. I think it'll be a good one.
Yeah, I mean, even though what's going on in Australia is sort of unfortunate from a liberty standpoint, I still have no doubt that they're a committed ally to us, considering that they engaged with this deal with us, which is really the only thing I think the U.S. will care about at this point. And, they present a very strategic location if we were to hypothetically engage in an all-out war with China. But again, I personally don't think that'll happen. I think it's definitely just going to be a Cold War, as Danny states, just who can get their foot where and in what door at what time. And that's really it. Next week, we're going to have the debate on pro-life versus pro-choice. I'll be participating as well as Maria. Anthony will be moderating, and it definitely will be a good one. And as for this topic, China is always going to be a major part of geopolitics in the present day.
Keep an eye on Taiwan.
Yes.
And hey, shout out to my buddy JC who lives in Taiwan right now. I hope China doesn't come into your country. That'd be really bad, especially for your stock portfolio. So please pray for him.
Yes.
Fingers crossed.
Yep.
Prayers up.
Doesn't turn into anything.
All right. Thank you, everybody. And we will see you next week. Bye-bye.
See you soon.